Hello, my fellow hunters, and especially hello to those of you that have also chosen the greatest weapon in the game like me. High five! So, these are the 5 best greatswords, or at least best in terms of pure min-max power, because if the quest complete drops down and you had fun, then you are using the perfect build for you. It really is as simple as that in Monster Hunter. You don't need to and should never feel forced to cookie-cutter anything, but if, like me, you occasionally get the itch to just, have the best stuff, well, then this is for you. Firstly, I do want to quickly cover bloat values. So essentially, every weapon in the game has a true raw value, the actual attack that it has. But what we see when we look at our equipment info is the bloated value of the weapon, and every single weapon has a different bloat value. So for example, the greatsword has a bloat value of 4.66. How do we know this? Well, if I add an attack decoration to my weapon, it says attack plus 3. So presumably you would expect me to go to 1083. However, we go to 1094, which is 3 times 4.66. You see? So essentially, the implication of this is that every single attack value that you see when you look at the weapons that you can craft for greatswords specifically is 4.66 times higher than it actually is. So why have they done this? Well, it makes it more intuitive for newer players especially to compare weapons, because if this didn't happen, this final Nergy Greatsword would have the same attack value as this final Nergy Jewel Blades, or near as damn it, and then you'd be thinking, but the Jewel Blades attack way faster, why would I use the Greatsword? They've got the same attack. So when they are bloated up, you can be like, okay, 300 on the Jewel Blades, pretty quick, but it's pretty low, so I guess that kind of balances out, and then 1008 on the Greatsword, that's huge, but it's a slow weapon that doesn't hit often, so yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. See, the thing is, every weapon does have a different bloat value. The bow's, I believe, is the lowest at 1.3 times its true. You also have the Great Jagras, which has a bloat value of 5. Get it, because... Come on! So that's why when I'm like, yeah, this adds 5 attack to the weapon, and that's great, I don't mean 5 on top of 1,000, which is tiny, so who really cares? I mean 5 to its true raw value, before it's then multiplied and displayed to you, which in that case, it's really good. And it is good, because as a greatsword user, you just really care about having as high true raw value as possible. And the reason for that is because the greatsword has especially good motion values. This could be a whole other video, but a motion value very quickly is the multiplier that is applied to your damage when you connect with a given move. And for the true charge hits, which is where your damage is weighted, your multiplier is sky high. So you want as much raw damage to multiply as possible, which does mean we kind of don't care at all about statuses and the elements. I'm sorry, but I still love your show, but look, fuck off. Though, admittedly, if you want to go at Valhazar, who's weak to fire, with Rathalos Glintsword, go for it. You'll still have good results. These aren't hard and fast rules, they are general mindsets. Number 5, then, is the Bharath Shredder. Now, this might seem a bit of a weird choice, but trust me, I like to think I know my greatswords. Allow me to explain why this is particularly good, albeit only 5th on the list. It's a 960 attack greatsword, so that's pretty good. It's got blue sharpness, that's pretty good. Sadly, can't get to white with handicraft. And sharpness, if you don't know, isn't just an extra ability to not bounce off the monster, it has damage implications. If your weapon has blue sharpness, its raw damage is being times by 1.2. 1.05 for green, 1 for yellow, and 1.32 for white. We got that going for us. It's got fairly decent gem slots, bit of defense just for fun, but we don't really care about that. So what is the main deal here? Well, firstly, a jewel, the Elementalist Jewel. This is the Diablos 4 set, but in jewel form, and on a weapon with no element, of which Bharath doesn't have unless you have free element, which you shouldn't have, again, greatsword, you get a 10% boost to the raw damage of the weapon. That is huge! Like, that is absolutely massive. And then on top of that, we can augment this bad boy 3 times. And if you don't know what augmenting is, so augmentation then is an endgame mechanic that lets you use rare drops from tempered hunts in order to buff your weapon even further. And the important thing to know is that Rarity 6 weapons can be augmented 3 times, Rarity 7 twice, and Rarity 8 once. So Bharath Shredder already starts at 960, so we can add the attack increase 3 times, which is fantastic. Now, we also want technically 1 affinity increase, so we only go to minus 10%, but after the first affinity increase, there is diminishing returns and you only get 5%. So you'd want 1 affinity and 2 plus 5 attacks, and you have quite a meaty weapon. So bear this in mind when I talk about augmentation on further items down the list. Cool? Cool. So all of that together means that you can reach an obscenely high raw damage, not lose too much from the resulting minus 10% affinity, and essentially hit things really hard with some good utility in your gem slots. But again, this is only the 5th best, so 4 then is the Nergigante End Greatsword, the Purgation's Atrocity. This thing is simply wonderful. 1008, straight fresh off the smithy belt, is beautiful. A bit of dragon to boost, and high Elder Seal, making it a fantastic Elder Dragon farming weapon. Elder Seal, if you don't know, essentially suppresses things like Teo's Fire Aura or Kushala's Wind Aura. In fact, I've had times where the suppression has kicked in just as Teo was doing Supernova, and it cancelled it. It's really quite nice to have. The game doesn't really do a good job of explaining it. Got a hefty amount of blue, and essentially the reason this is so good is it's a hugely powerful and solid greatsword that needs no additional support. It needs no jewels to make work. It needs no armor skills to make work. It benefits from the good ones like everything does, but it doesn't require an extra ingredient to become good. It's just really solid. So out of all of them on this list, if you just want to make one, throw it on your back, hit things and not think any further, this is the one to go for. And if that wasn't enough, it grows frickin' spikes when you do your power attacks. And I actually theorize that thanks to Nergigante's regenerative properties, that his body parts retain their living biological functions even post-mortem. This isn't uncommon, it happens with a few of the more powerful monsters in the past. So I would posit that this sword, the Nergigante parts on it, are genuinely growing the spikes like he does in life. They are puncturing the monster as you slash, breaking off and remaining embedded in him like they would break off a Nergigante. Which means you're slowly turning your opponent into a Nergigante-esque pincushion while fighting. How awesome is that?
I love it!
Number 3 is dead good. It's Valhazak's Leviathan Fury. I mean, it looks pretty awesome, let's be honest, but the reason this thing is fantastic is because of sharpness. You see, it has by default 960 attack and blue sharpness, but with just 2 points in handicraft, you actually can turn it into white sharpness, taking you from the 1.2 multiplier to the 1.32, a 12% gain in raw strength. That is understandably huge for a greatsword. Obviously, you'd want more than just 2 ranks because the bit of white you get is such a tiny slither, but assuming you use this sword with handicraft, it becomes a very potent weapon. A good amount of dragon attacks when you're facing Elder Dragons that are weak to that. Yeah, that's a nice bonus. Not as much Elder Seal as Nergigante, and it does require you to build around it, but if you do build around it, you will outperform both Bharath and Nergigante. That's kind of the TLDR here. Number 2 then, and my favourite, and ironically the only one of these I don't own already, is the Great Wyvern Jawblade. I love this thing from an aesthetic standpoint, and the implication behind it that you handed the head of this huge monstrous beast you've slain, the smithy just ripped off its jaw, gave it a quick sharpen, stuck on an extendable, because everything is cooler when it's extendable. Seriously, name me one thing that isn't cooler when it's extendable. I'm losing sleep over this. And then gave you it back. 960 damage without any negative affinity, a level 3 jewel slot, which is amazing, a little bit of extra defense, which again isn't, you know, anything we care about, but it's still nice, can be augmented once because it's rare 8, but it can take the Elementalist Jewel. So essentially, we're trading minus 20% affinity gone from the Bharath at the cost of losing 2 augment slots, which is totally worth it, because one augment's already gone on Bharath, putting it from minus 20 to minus 10, still leaving it on minus. Then you have a plus 5 attack on both, cancelling each other out, so Bharath ends up at minus 10% affinity with an extra 5 raw attack over the Jawblade. However, the Jawblade has a better jewel slot, a little bit better defense, and let's be honest, looks a lot cooler. It's not incredibly better, but it is better, and I think that's really the important thing to take away here. You also get the materials for crafting it from the arena in the guild hall. It might not be obvious to you where you actually start making this thing. So that leaves number 1 then. What monster, what terrible beast, what formidable foe, what earth-shaking, terrifying power can give us the best greatsword in the entire game? It's Jagras Hacker level 3. Yep, I'm not even kidding. And look, I should start by saying this isn't as disappointing as it initially looks, because this is only the best greatsword if you are at ultra end game. In fact, not even just ultra. Like, we're gonna go as far as... Look, I know that was a stretch, but I really love the show, so fight me. Oh god, I just said fight me, and I'm so sorry. So once you are hundreds and hundreds of hours in, and you have multiple of every jewel in the game, you are Scrooge McDucking your way into a pile of decorations, and you have augments for days, you want to get out your Jagras Hacker. 2 level 3 slots, that is amazing. That lets you do a lot of cool build playing around with. 912 attack is less than the others, but still fairly high and definitely enough to work with. Blue sharpness, not a load, but enough to be getting on with, especially if you pair it with Odogoron's protective polish, which you will have a duel for, because again, this is for ultra endgame. So what you do is you sock it to really good level 3s, you give it 3 times attack augmentation, so that's another plus 15 true raw. You don't have to negate any affinity, though admittedly just giving it 10% affinity is also a pretty decent gain, and the arguments and maths between affinity and attack is still being discussed, so I don't want to commit to either one, but essentially all your augments are pure increase. You throw an Elementalist Jewel on it for another 10%, and now you are holding the highest potential greatsword in the game. Will edge out the others by, in some cases, a tiny margin, and in some others, an appreciable bump. I know it seems hard to believe, but it really does. That's how the maths work out. The Jagras Hacker 3 has the highest potential out of every greatsword in the game, so go figure, eh? I don't honestly mind that much because I love Great Jagras. I love reptiles. I think he looks fantastic. He's actually just one of my favorite monsters in the game, at least to look at. His fight is obviously a joke, but he's literally the entry level, so whatever. But yeah, let me know if you liked this. I kind of want to do the same for like my 5 favorite. I can't really say best when it comes to greatsword sets, what combination of armor and skills I like to use, but I do want to show off in kind of a similar vein them, and essentially, yeah, was it structured? Okay, I'm new to this kind of video-y style, so let me know. Like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I'll see. I mean, I guess it's easy to farm. I'll see you next time, everyone. A goodbye.
rage gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kinda relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.